today we're working on a 2006 Jeep Commander. This one has the 5.7 Hemi and it has a front end, not necessarily a click, but a thunk. It's usually more pronounced when you switch from reverse to drive or from drive to reverse, and if it's rolling a little bit. This is almost always indicative of a front differential bushing, and it's almost always a top bushing. So I don't really run into it very often on the V6, and it's not even a smaller V8, but with the Hemi, it seems that the additional horsepower that comes with that engine has a tendency to take out those bushings more often than not. So we're going to show you real quick how to replace these, and we'll go from there. So before you start the job, you're going to want to verify that it's the bushings that are bad, and that's really, really easy to do. Even if it's on the ground, it helps if you raise and support the vehicle. It gives you a little bit more room. These things aren't exactly lifted off the ground the highest, but it's really easy to do. And here's your differential. All right, there's going to be a mount here, a mount over here, and I'm not sure if you can see that. I'll be sure to show you that here in a second. And then right above the pinion in the back of the differential, there's also another mount. Really simply, just grab the back of the differential, and if you can move it like this, that thing's bad, and it's going to need to be replaced. The view isn't much better back here, and here's your transmission pan, exhaust system, front drive shaft, and then there's the other one right there. And that's, like I said, the one that always fails. And of course, the one that always fails happens to be the biggest pain in the butt to do. But this video will hopefully give you some insight on how to get it done easier. First thing we're going to do on this is remove the tire and wheel assembly. Get that out of the way. That way you can remove the CV axles. Once you remove the CV axles, we're going to go ahead and remove the front drive line. And when we're at that point, we'll be able to drop the differential. So really, all I did, disconnected the top upper control arm on both sides, the tie rod end on both sides, and then just removed the steering knuckle enough to where I could disconnect the CV shafts and just get them out of the way, just enough to where I can drop that differential. All right, I mean, I know I had it on time lapse and it only took a matter of seconds, but in all reality, 15 minutes if that to get all this done. You want to make sure that you don't let your brake calipers hang by the hose. That's never good for them. You can tie them. I've got these fancy little hooks. I love them to death, and just wrapped it around the coil right there on both sides. Pulled it out, and now I'm ready to drain the differential. Drain plug is on the bottom, driver's side. It is a 14mm Allen wrench. Go ahead and get your drain pan ready and get all that fluid out of there. Once this fluid is drained, you're gonna need to disconnect the drive line. I believe they're probably 13mm, but I lied to you. It's a 15, and the best way to do this, get yourself an extension, impact gun preferably. It's a lot easier and a lot faster. But if you don't, it's fine. The extension is the best thing to do here.
Before you go removing bolts in this thing, a couple things that you want to do first. You want to disconnect this plug and this vent. Get those out of the way. I'm going to give myself a little bit more room on that top bushing, which is kind of a pain to get to. It's not too bad, but it helps to give yourself a little bit of extra room. So what I usually do is I disconnect this mount, and the mount in the back is still there. This thing will flop around a whole bunch, especially if that mount is as trashed as this one is. But it should give you enough room to access that top mount a little bit easier. All right. These two bolts right here are 16 millimeter. We're going to go ahead and take them out now. Go ahead and support it a little bit while you take it out so it doesn't fall. And you can drop it down. This one you're going to have to, looks like a 15 millimeter. Double check that. Yeah, 15 millimeter in the front, probably an 18 millimeter in the back. You're going to need to back it up. Yep, 18 millimeter in the back. My electric ratchet's in the repair shop right now. I can't wait to get that back because that saves me a lot of time doing just about anything. Then you should be able to, once you have that nut off the back, you should be able to lift up on it just a little bit. And push it out. Sometimes it's a pain. Like it's going to be right now. Screw that. Just going to tap on the back of that bolt just a little bit. You don't want to hit it hard. You don't want to booger up the threads because then you have to find a new bolt to stick in there. And there we go. But now that sucker's just hanging in there by that busted ass mount in the back. Now that we removed those two mounts from the frame, it's a lot easier to access this rear mount. Look at that thing is trashed. Ain't much rubber left in it, is there? So kind of the same as when you took the front driveline off. 15 millimeter in extension for the back. And for this, we'll go up and over the exhaust in the rear. And we'll attach it to that 15 millimeter bolt on that side. And then grab yourself an 18 millimeter boxing wrench and we'll put it, we'll use it to back up the nut on the other side. Now it's time to get this thing out of here. So, use my transmission jack. You can use a floor jack if you're doing this on the ground. You just want to be able to get. There's a lot of pressure on that back bolt, and so you want to get it kind of close to its original position. So you can pull that bolt out of there, and then drop this sucker down. Drop this puppy out of here. Look at the damage. Come down nice and slow. Make sure you didn't forget to disconnect anything. Make sure you don't do any damage to your CV axles when you're coming down. Make sure they stay out of the way. Yeah, that's pretty. Look at that. This is going to ride a whole lot better when this is replaced. So in this angle right here, we're looking at the front of the differential here, and this is going toward the back of the vehicle. This bushing needs to go toward the back of the vehicle when you're pushing it out. I'm going to use an air hammer here because I like doing things fast. Hopefully you have an air hammer. If you don't, you could just use a chisel and a hammer. It's fine. And what I do is there's a slight lip on the inside. Okay, there's a slight lip. I like to bend it down to where I can actually get a good grip on it with the chisel or the air hammer and push it out. I'll show you right now. So I already did this part. I chiseled it down. And then once I had more of a lip, they're not always that easy. Sometimes they're a real pain in the butt, but this one wasn't too bad. There we go. We're going to go slap the new one in real quick. So there's almost always going to be some rust and some dirt and some nastiness in there, so you just want to clean that up with a wire brush, maybe some steel wool, maybe some fine grit sandpaper, just to kind of clean that up. It'll make the installation of the new bushing a lot easier. If you did any damage with your chisel, air hammer, or whatever you use to push that bushing out of there, right now would be a good time to clean up that metal. You don't want any obstructions. Hit a road today! Grab our new bushing. Keep in mind this lip needs to be installed this way. They give you, if you look at the front of it, there's a little notch right there. Just make sure that points down.
So putting this thing back in is going to be a lot like taking it out. The only exception is that when you get it back up into place, I would first put in the front bushing, both front bushings, and then do the back bushing. That way it's not such a pain in the butt to put it in there. If you do that, it'll make the whole job a lot easier.
So when you're putting the wheels back together, one trick that I use to kind of make things go a little faster, see I got that in there, it goes in super easy. It's definitely an easy way to do this. Got everything connected here right now. I'm about ready to put this brake on, and what I like to do is I like to put the rotor on and then sink a lug nut on there to kind of keep that rotor straight. Make sure that those pads, see that one's not, but basically make sure everything's back in there, and then you can just force it back onto the rotor without doing any damage, and you don't have to mess with anything. You don't have to compress it, and it should be good to go. Physic. So this sucker is done. But on a closing note, unless you want to pull that differential out again today and put a new one in it, don't forget to fill it back up. Yep, I just consulted with Identifix, and it is 1.8 quarts. 1.8 quarts. This dog wants me to kick this stick for him. All right, that's it. Hopefully this helps some of you guys out. If you liked it, then like the video. Subscribe if you want to. Leave a comment. You guys have a nice day.